All right, what is up, everybody out there? Hopefully, some of you will be joining us tonight. I know I was set to do a YouTube live last night at 8 p.m., but unfortunately, I am ignorant enough to forget that I scheduled a Zoom meeting with somebody else. So I was doing a Zoom conference last night during the time that we were supposed to be doing YouTube live, but we are at it tonight. YouTube Live, first one of the summer 2024. Glad you guys could be here. I know it's a Saturday night and people are probably busy, but if you're into ball and you love coaching, then hopefully you can find time to do this. So, just going to roll with a couple things that we have going on right now. And just talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing, some of the things that we're thinking about, some of the things that we're looking at. And hopefully, if there's anybody out there that wants to contribute to what they're doing, what they're working on, what they're looking at right now during their summer season, then that would be completely awesome as well. So we finished up our spring at the end of May, got about 2 weeks off before we kicked it off again and got a little bit of time to kind of, evaluate, analyze where we were in the spring, what we need to do, what our talent level is. And as we, kind of kick off and roll into the spring now we have to start kind of figuring out who we're going to be, what we want to be, what we need to do, not only for our personnel, but, what we need to do based on who we're playing, the teams that we're playing against, who's on our schedule, what our team's doing, to attack us. So as I got back from my usual every summer 10-day hiatus to play golf in New York, and pretty much once that ends, then it comes back to the grind of football every day. So I got about a 10-day break, recharge the batteries, get myself kind of back in the mode of what we need to be doing. And during that 10-day break, I don't really do any football. I don't do any YouTube videos. I don't do anything. I just try to enjoy being at home again, where I grew up in New York, and playing golf with good friends of mine on golf courses that I couldn't get on when I was a kid. And now, because my buddies are members, I can now get on those. So returning from that, we're back into football, full go, full grind. So, one of the first things we had to look at was, all right, what did we do in the spring? What did we play in the spring? Can we continue to play what we played in the spring? What is our personnel? What are people trying to do to attack us? And, what is our best answer, not only for what they're doing, but for what our personnel is. And, after that 10-day break, and I don't post anything during that 10-day break, but it's certainly a reflection for me to kind of think about where we need to be, what we need to do, where we need to go. So even though I'm not posting anything football wise on that quote unquote golf hiatus, I am 100% thinking football the entire time. And, what I kind of realized was that for our personnel and who we are right now, we're probably more of a 3-4 team than we are a 3-3-3 high team. We rolled into the spring with our base defense, tight front, 3 high. We tried to fit some pieces where they need to be fitted. And, not that it was the end of the world. We weren't terrible by any means. But when I go back and look at it, I look at our talent. I look at who we're playing, what they're going to try and do to attack us. The more and more I realize that we're probably more of a 3-4 reduction team. So when I say, Tony, how are you, my friend? When I say that we are a 3-4 reduction team, I mean that we're probably going to be boundary reduction, under front, bringing a weak side backer, as a fourth rusher 90% of the time. You know, I would love to carry some of our three high stuff because I think it fits. And, you know, based on our personnel, if I had to do it all over again, I would scheme up our three high stuff, and I would make it a base package to where we are three high versus the things we want to be three high versus, and then the things that give us issues, we morph into a 3-4. But in reality, with our personnel group, we have a kid that I think is going to be a phenomenal weak side jack backer, 3-4 outside backer that is rushing the passer 90% of the time. And when he drops, he's a curl flat guy. Um, we have a kid that fits that mode to a T. And I think it's going to be the best for his uh, success and his college career from, you know, what some recruiters have already told us looking at the kid early on. Um, and I think it makes us a better defense. So we are probably going to morph more to some 3-4, two high stuff. Probably plays similar to some of the 4-2-5 stuff we used to do in the past, where, you know, there's four rushers. We're still going to play tight front. I'm not getting away from that. I think tight front is, to me, on defense, a way to be different, a way to make offenses prepare for a front that is a little bit out of the norm from what you see every day. So we're going to approach this from a tight front theory, not just a straight 3-4 theory. But when I analyze the talent on our roster, when I analyze what teams are doing now, you know, again, we have 2 years worth of film being tight three high. We have, you know, a lot of data and analytics there to say how people try to approach attacking that defense. So, you know, when I look at that and I look at our spring game, it kind of gets me to a point where I feel like we need to be more of a 3-4, two high defense. And as much as it pains me to get away from some of the three high stuff that we did as a base, because I absolutely love all of that stuff, it is really not that far removed from what we do. And again, you know, if I had to start all over day one and go to a place where it was brand new and we could start fresh, I would probably analyze the personnel a little bit differently, and I would select, or at least try to select somebody that I thought that could play the middle safety position in our three high stuff that could blend into 3-4 stuff. So looking for a kid that could be a weak side jack backer in a 3-4, but could also handle what we need him to handle in the three high stuff. And, you know, right now for us, it's really not in the cards with our personnel to do that. So I think we're going to become more of a 3-4 team. So it's not new to me. We were a reduction team, under front team when I first started coaching. Good friend of mine that I just saw while I was in New York, one of my college coaches, Joe Delgaze, who may be on. He was on last night waiting for me to come on, and I never came on, but he might be on tonight. I don't know. But when I became a head coach and had to figure out what we were going to do on defense, I basically took all of his stuff from the stuff he was doing at St. John's University, where I played and was a GA. And we were basically in an under front team or reduction team, boundary reduction, quarter, half, which, you know, in our split field package, in what we do, even with our three high stuff, we never really, we never strayed too far from that. We've been a split field coverage team, quarters toolbox team the entire time. Even with the three high stuff, we never changed. So the good thing, realistically, as a coordinator, the good thing is for us, when we make the change to more of a 3-4 defense, there's a huge amount of carryover in what we are doing coverage wise. So the thing that we need to really address, motion adjustments are extremely different. So that's as we threw our first 7-on-7 the other day, and that was kind of one of the first issues that we need to address because the motion adjustments aren't the same. 3-by-1 coverages, depending on who we play, we've got to, again, anytime you make a change, I think you need to reevaluate your personnel. And the personnel that we were playing in certain positions as a 3-high team, especially the younger group of kids, which for me, I even when I was a head coach and now that I'm a defensive coordinator, I put a lot of stock into what we're doing with our younger kids. Um, I was at public high schools my entire life, and even before a lot of the changes in what's going on nowadays with school of choice and kids being able to go wherever they want to go, and you not really knowing what your roster is going to be, and now you throw NIL and all the other bullshit into the mix. I always felt like we need to put a lot of stock into our young kids and put a lot of effort and time into our young kids, because if we do this right, the way it's supposed to be done, those young kids should be our starters down the road. So, as a head coach, I never ever bought into the philosophy of your JV goes behind portable somewhere and two guys get them through practice, and whatever they do on Thursday night, they do. Um, to me, JV was our farm system. It was our feeder system. It was everything that we needed to become a good varsity program. So I always wanted those kids to be running the same things that we're running, and I always wanted them to be coached the same way that our varsity kids are coached. So, if I had to do it again, um, you know, yeah, pretty much, Tony. I mean, that's if you're. I still don't know, even in today's day and age, if you run a program based on who's coming and not who's there, I don't really know how to run a program that way. But um, even in college now, it's basically you're coaching a team based on who you might get as opposed to who you have, and you're always looking for another answer. So I really don't know how to function that way. Sorry, got to open the door for my cat. Come on. I don't know how to do things that way. It's not how I was raised. It's not how I was taught to coach. So our JV program is kind of the lifeblood of our future and what we do. So, if I had to go back and do it again, I would start at the youth level, ninth grade entry level, trying to find the exact guy that can fit into the spot that we can morph from our 3-high into some 3-4 stuff. So I did a video a couple days ago, and I basically talked about what I like and I don't like with our 3-high stuff. So, in that video, what I basically went through and talked about was, our 3-high stuff to any formations that are by one. So 2-by-1, 3-by-1, any formations that are single width on the backside. We absolutely love what we do with our 3-high package. I love me indifferent. I love the fact that that middle safety can be a guy that's involved in run fits that you don't really equate for in the run fit. I love the fact that we have multiple 3-deep rotations. I love the fact that the middle safety kind of acts as a buffer to disguise the things that you're doing. So, I love our 3-by-1s. I'm sorry, our 3-high stuff for all those by one formations. But what I've started to figure out over the last 2 years is as teams game plan more and more for us, we're seeing way more 2-by-2 and predominantly 11 personnel 2-by-2, tight end flanker to one side, twins to the other. And that gives us a little bit of an issue with our 3-high stuff, especially when you put an attached tight end that makes a 3-man surface. That gives you a little bit better run surface than 10 personnel 2-by-2. And, the reason for that in essence is anytime we play by one formations, 3-by-1, 2-by-1, we end up with a nickel strong and an overhang weak. Whether that overhang ends up being a corner or a safety based on how we want to play the single side and what our rotations are, we still end up kind of balanced to where there's a nickel strong and an overhang weak, and the middle safety is kind of running the alley from side to side as an 8 defender in the box, depending on what offenses are doing. But um, when it's a by one formation, we feel really good that we are balanced, and our middle safeties, the add-on alley guy, a guy that we're trying to send the ball to, and 2-by-2 formations with an attached tight end kind of give us some issues to where even if we want to be balanced, in order for us to be balanced, we've got to bump the will linebacker out of the box. And that kind of leaves us with a 3-1 box, which to 10 personnel, I am perfectly fine. That's the tight front theory. That's the tight front philosophy. That's the light box theory and philosophy. To 10 personnel. As soon as it becomes 11 and there's a body that's attached that makes a 3-man surface, I think you've got to be really talented to play a 3-1 box to a formation that has a tight end attached. And, I've researched a lot of different things and studied a lot of different things. And I watched some good high school programs out there that play defense exactly the way we would play it from our 3 high structure. And, at the end of the day, one of the things I've always tried to accentuate on the Play Fast channel is you have to play football conducive to the players that you have. And, ideas and theories that work for other people may not work for you. So you've got to find a way to kind of improvise and adjust to what you do. So, the more I research it, the more I find that in our 3 high structure, a lot of the people out there speaking on 3 high defense are playing it versus 11 personnel 2-by-2 the same way we would. But the issue is we were not having a lot of success. So, to watch a video, go on YouTube or Glazier Vault Clinic Drive, whatever the hell it is now, to hear people talk about what they do and how they do it when you've done it and haven't had a ton of success, does it kind of does it eliminate some doubt in your mind from, hey, we're on the right track, we're doing the right things? Yes, it certainly does. But at the end of the day, football is results driven. Sorry, guys, if it froze up there for a minute. If if the results are not conducive to what you're trying to do, then it doesn't really matter how many other people are doing it. It doesn't really matter that you're doing something that you've seen other places do with great success. If you're not having success, then at the end of the day, results dictate that you need to change. So, I think I've done enough research and enough soul searching and gone down a rabbit hole to figure out how everybody else makes their adjustments playing 3 high stuff, but it just doesn't work for us. So we've got to make a change. I'll film what's your base alignment to 1-by-3, 3-by-1. Set tight end. So Jalen, standard camp answer for us. Nickel sets to the 3 receiver side. We play whatever 3-by-1 adjustment we think handles what we need to handle. To the trip side. On the back side, we would probably be sky to a nub. So safety down, overhang, corner playing probably 10-by-1, C-gap ish, quarters rules off the tight end. He's a deep half player, but you got to keep in mind if somebody gives you a nub tight end and you want to play a half field concept, if the nub tight end puts his hands on somebody and blocks, then the high player can come off the roof a hell of a lot quicker. Being a half defender, you only have to defend a half to people that can threaten a half. If they have a nub tight end on the backside that can't threaten a half, especially when he puts his hands on people in the run game, you need to get an extra helmet. So 3-by-1 is going to try and 3-by-1 nub, especially, you're going to try and get a three-man surface on offense. You're going to try and affect numbers based on um, what the 3-by-1 checks are and the answers are. And if teams 3-by-1 answer leaves you a box that you can run into with a nub tight end, then you're certainly going to do that. So um, we always have to try to find versus nub sets how we're going to get an extra defender in there, because 3-by-1, they're pulling somebody out to get you to line up as if it's 10 personnel, or to get you to honor the trip side, but then they've got an attached tight end that they're probably going to drill a bunch of run game at. So we would be camp rule day one, we would be a standard sky rotation down. I don't like playing the corner as a force player versus nub tight end, so we would be skied, but the corner that's playing the deep half technique has to be taught how to play more of a quarters theory, flat footed. He should be able to handle a tight end vertical. And if that tight end attached is putting his hands on people in the run game, you really don't need a deep half defender versus a nub tight end that is aggressively involved in the run game. So that's what we would do day one. Probably wouldn't change the rotation or the reduction side of it. We probably, if we set the nickel to the trips, we would set the jack away, and we would probably move the front away from the jack. And then the issue game plan wise would be, is the jack going to go outside the tight end or be more of a 7 technique inside the tight end? So that would be the game plan, stuff that we would be looking at. But day one, camp rules 3-4 stuff, we really wouldn't change anything. We would set the passing strength to the trips. We would set the reduction to the nub. And again, theoretically, when you want to look at things, if we set the nickel to the trips and the reduction side was to the tight end, we'd end up being an over front. So if you want to analytically, statistically, theoretically analyze whether or not you're over under, that part we could argue all day. So we're typically an under front team, boundary reduction, 3-by-1 with the passing strength to the trips and a nub on the backside. We'd end up being reduction to the nub, which would make us a 3 and a 7 to the tight end, which everybody would assume is an over front. So I don't really get caught up in the logistics of over, under, and what we're doing. As long as our backers understand what gaps are open and what they need to fit, I don't get too carried away with that stuff. If we were an under team, that formation with passing strength separate from run strength is probably the question everybody wants answered. If you set the nickel and the strength to the passing strength, and that means you have the open B gap bubble to the passing strength, but they have run strength away. So now you're technically on paper an over front team. But again, to me, that's all logistics. It's sidebar data, however you want to look at it. As long as we understand where our backers are going to fit based on gaps in front of them, then over under, to me, kind of, you can throw it up in the air and debate however you want to debate it. But that's camp rules, how we would handle it. If I had to go in tomorrow with our 3-4 stuff, that's exactly what we would do. The only game plan, again, to me, the game plan adjustment would be, do we want the jack in a 7 in the C gap, or do we want the jack coming off the edge? And depends on the talent level of the player and what you're trying to do. If you feel like he is a better player for you off the edge, maybe denting, not worrying about spilling things, then that's something you can choose. If you feel like you want to take the C gap away and make sure the tight end, when he tries to gap scheme you, has a body to block so he can't get to linebacker level, that's completely up to you and how you want to do it. So, the 3-4 stuff, to me, even if you start in a world that's boundary reduction, it's still check with me. We can play all the coverages we want to play based on formations. We've got a few simple built-in rules so that if you do give us 2-by-2, we can drop 8 and drop the jack if we need to. We're still going to have the ability to send the nickel from the field side, probably rotate to 3 deep, which is nowadays, I think everybody would consider it some type of field side nickel creeper. If you're a 3-4 person like I am, going back 35 years ago or 30 years ago when I learned it from my buddy, um, my college coach, Joe Delgaze. That was one of the first deals you always carried was bringing the Sam from the field and rotating to play three deep. So you would, your base defense would start as a split field reduction, weak side boundary reduction, under front team until they gave you a formation that made you do something else. And the standard FIB check or the standard check would be three deep. So as a 3-4 team that brings the weak side jack boundary reduction, you have to have a way to bring the field side Sam nickel and make it field reduction. And the majority of the stuff that you're going to research, look at, or um, dive into online, I would guarantee you that most of the resources are going to tell you when the jack comes, you can play split field. As soon as you bring the Sam from the field, you're probably going to rotate and be a three deep team. So whether or not your Ripley's match or country cover three is up to you with what you feel like you can teach and what you feel like your kids can do. But, that's pretty much standard 3-4 football. And now in the world we live in, the nomenclature of how you identify things, I think those kind of fall into the creeper world where you're bringing the Sam from the field. And to me, because I've done it for so long and I kind of cut my teeth in 3-4 defense, it's standard operating procedure for every 3-4 defense. You bring the boundary jack, you bring the field Sam, based on how you're playing the passing strength. When you bring the boundary jack, you can play all your normal deals. When you bring the field Sam, you're kind of short and overhang over there. So unless you have some different rules of how you want to align your safeties, when you bring the Sam, you're probably going to end up rotating to three deep. So, to me, that's kind of status quo 3-4 football. That's if you study 3-4 stuff, that goes back 40, 50 years, in Okie defense. So, I'm okay with everybody saying that it's a field side creeper. I'm okay with everybody labeling it whatever they want to label it. But 30 years ago, there were no creepers, there were no sims. We mugged guys and we presented different paths, but it never got labeled as a simulated pressure or a creeper replacement blitz. It was just part of the package. So, yeah, JD, I think there's a huge separation between what we do and what a college DC would do. We're doing as many things to stay cutting edge and be different as possible. But with our work week, our kids playing both sides of the ball, offense and defense, the staff that we have, I still think we're going to do way, way less than college guys are going to do. College guys are going to have way more checks built in. They're going to have way more probably check with me blitzes and pressures based on formations and, a lot of different ways that they can handle certain things. And we're probably going to have a few limited ways that we handle things for our kids. So I would think that there's a huge difference between what college DCs do and what we would do. I like to think that we're kind of on the cutting edge, with our tight front three high stuff and even our 3-4 stuff, split field coverage. I think we're still a little bit different maybe than some people, but at the end of the day, I would think there's a huge gap between what we do and what college guys would do. So I'm trying to limit the amount of checks that we make. I'm trying to make things as simple as possible for our players, based on the amount of time that we have them to play defense and line up on defense and the fact that they're also playing receiver or running back, kind of gets us to be a little bit more limited than the college guys. So, again, not to beat around the bush or beat a dead horse down, but if you're asking me in a college DC, I would think there's a huge gap between the two things that we do. I would think they carry way more than we do, and have way more adjustments than we have. But they also have the time, the leverage, the ability, the personnel to do those things. So hats off to them. The thing that's not different when you really break it down is they need to do the things that they think they need to do to win games, and we need to do the things that we think we need to do to win games. So they probably need to carry more because they're going to see more than we do, but they also have more time to rep it than we do. So, you know, um, philosophically, from the approach of it, I think we're both going to carry what we feel like we need to carry to win games. And um, I'm going to keep my adjustments as limited as I possibly can so that our kids can quote unquote play fast. And they're probably going to have more answers than we would have. But huge gap between us and college guys. Defense, we were split coverage up until 2 days ago, and now we're quarters. So to me, Maui, quarters is split field coverage. In general, if you're playing quarters to both sides to everything, then maybe you don't view it as a split field coverage. But when you start getting by one sets and you only have one receiver to defend out there, and maybe you're playing quarters off a back, I would think the majority of quarters teams are split field in nature. And if they get single width sets on the backside, they can defend them how they want to without having to be locked into quarters. Um, you know, our quarter stuff is probably matching philosophy, the way we play it. So I'm a huge fan of I don't cover seven, whatever you want to call it. If it's the Saban terminology of split field, I'm a huge fan of cover seven, huge fan of split field coverage, huge fan of pattern matching out of our quarters defense, if that answers your question. How do you like to play 11 personnel sniffer 2x2 wide stack to the field? So, um, if we're again, if we're morphing to 3-4 stuff and I can drop a weak side outside backer, thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the response and the question. If we're a 3-4 team and we're balanced with overhangs to each side and somebody gives me 2x2, and I feel like I can drop the weak side outside backer and play all the same coverages to the weak side. So, if they gave me tight end flanker away from twins and I set the nickel to the twins, if I have an outside backer that's a curl flat player and I can play quarters to that side, we'll drop 8 and do that. The wide stack to the field, there's really not a lot of ways you can play that. If they have a quarterback that can rip it out there, when teams go wide stack to the field, they're trying to get you either into some type of in and out bracket man deal, or if you try to stay within your zone principles, they're trying to widen the apex to get them out of the run fit so that they can run the ball. So, you don't have a ton of answers to wide stack stuff. If you try to play your base zone coverages, you're going to have to remove the overhang a bunch, and then they're going to run the ball at you because the overhang is not involved. If the overhang is involved, then there's not a lot of ways to play the wide stack stuff. I think the good thing in high school is there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can get it out to the wide stack as far as access throws or pre-snap reads. So I think you can balance the two of having to play some man stuff, but still being able to play your zone concepts without having to remove, the overhang. When you look at the schools that do it in college, and you look at the Briles system at Baylor, and now the Tennessee stuff the last 2 years with Heupel, and if teams can rip the ball out there, access throws, now screens, you really lose a lot of your options. If you widen the apex out, they're going to run the ball. If you don't widen the apex out, they're going to rip the now screens or the access throws. And you probably have to be in some version of man coverage, which means not only do you have to match that down the field, you also have to be able to tackle somebody. So, on paper, if they're wide stack and your corner and safety are out there, they only have one blocker, you have 2 defenders, but they're trying to get the football into the hands of their best players in space. So, wide stack stuff is really good philosophy on offense if the quarterback can get it out there. you dictate what the defense wants to do or wants to try to do. You want to remove the apex and play some, zone theories, then you're going to be light in the run game. If you want to keep the apex tighter to the box to defend runs, you're going to be conflicted of what coverages you can play out there. So anybody that has the ability to go wide stack and get the ball out to those guys, if you have that quarterback, then that's a great way to play football. It puts a lot of stress on defenses, especially in the um, pre-snap access gift world and the post-snap RPO world. So um, kind of handcuffing you a little bit as a defense coordinator, but if the things you're playing handles what they're doing, they probably won't stay wide stack for long. If you cannot handle a wide stack, then they're going to stay in it all game. So if you got some deals that are solid against it and it's good early, I think you can chase them out of that stuff. If what they're doing is good early, then they're going to stay in it and keep attacking you that way. So kind of handcuffing for a defense, not a ton of things you can do, but there's definitely answers out there. On the content, tough to get basic stuff. That's in your. Oh, I appreciate it, Hugo. One of the things I just did a TV interview with a buddy of mine, podcast. 15-minute interview with a friend of mine who does some stuff locally in Jacksonville. Actually, played linebacker for the Jags and played with my best friend in college at Boston College. So known the guy forever, and that's kind of one of the things we talked about when I started PlayFast. Originally when I started it, it was kind of based out of boredom. I was a head coach. It was the off season. Clinics hadn't started yet, and spring ball in college hadn't started yet. And I was looking for ways to become a better coach. And I was scouring, YouTube and the internet like most of you do. And I kind of ran into a wall of everything I watched was how Nick Saban does things and how Rich Rodriguez runs no huddle offense and how Doug Peterson throws four verticals and how Brent Venables played defense. And what I didn't find a lot of was high school guys talking to people about what they do, how they do it, and what it's good and bad versus. I didn't find a lot of information geared towards junior high coaches, Pop Warner coaches. So I tried to make PlayFast a channel where the content is, aggressive enough that it is cutting edge. We're not talking the minute basics of the game of football, but at the same time, we're trying to relate to people that are in the same genre as us. So I'm trying to take things that I'm doing in high school and things that I'm struggling with, and I'm trying to give people answers for them. When I first got into coaching in the late 90s and got a chance to go to clinics, and anytime there was an NFL coach on the docket, my brain and at that time I would say common sense or practical theory led me to go listen to the NFL coach. And every time I listened to that NFL coach, they really didn't have answers for what we see. Like they didn't have wing T answers. They didn't have single wing answers. They didn't have a lot of quarterback run answers because their game, again, this is going back to late 90s, early 2000s. Their game wasn't anywhere near conducive to our game. So they were great football coaches, individual position wise. The drills and the technique that they were talking about were second to none. And I love that part of it. As soon as we got into schemes, there was a huge disconnect between what they see and what we see. So, the roots of PlayFast and the theoretical approach to what PlayFast is always wanted to be a educational resource for people that addresses problems and issues that we have. I appreciate the fact that you found our channel, appreciate the fact overseas that you are coaching American football. I know it's bigger than it's ever been. During the pandemic, I did a Zoom call with Germany coaches, or coaches in Germany. I'm sorry. I did a Zoom call with coaches in Panama. I did a Zoom call with coaches in Brazil. So the fact that American football is now becoming popular in so many places is huge for us and our game. And um, you know, it's kind of ironically the way the channel was set up. The channel was set up to be an educational resource for people looking for material to help them at their level. So that's why we never really branched off. And in the YouTube world, it'd be real easy. With thumbnails and clickbait, it'd be real easy to do some things based on college guys and NFL guys and put a good picture up there and a good thumbnail up there that would get people to watch. But it doesn't really fit I guess you could, pedagogies. I don't know, maybe every time I use that word, somebody tells me I use it wrong. But, the base roots of what PlayFast is, that doesn't really fit us. So, to do something to get more views or to attract more people to the channel is kind of counterintuitive to everything we wanted the channel to be. So, the fact that, uh, you know, people are watching and the fact that you're overseas watching is basically the reason I do what I do, and the reason I'm so thankful and blessed to do the stuff that I do with people out there. So yeah, and I would think, Hugo, to be honest with you, coming from a 23 years of head coaching experience at the high school level, we would get so many ninth graders coming in that had zero football knowledge. A lot of kids that had never played before. If they did play, they were coming from the bare minimum. Um, I have a ton of respect for junior high coaches. There's not a lot of them. Maybe you have two or three guys on the staff. You're trying to put a game plan together for kids to compete, and it's hard, to teach the game while trying to, be competitive at your school. So, I can relate to what you're going through. Coaching kids with a lot of limitations as far as their knowledge of football and how we have to introduce the game. So, it just fits kind of hand in hand with the channel and what we do and how we do it. And that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. And I think we have a really, I'm very fortunate because I think we have kind of a niche audience that this is what you're into. And if you're into it, then, good for you, good for me. But there's also another audience that wants to know what Nick Saban's doing on every down and that wants to play coverages exactly how Nick Saban plays them. And, if that's if that's your niche and what you want, then there's other channels out there for that. But, um, your experience of what you're doing overseas is kind of the entire reason we exist and what I wanted this channel to be. So I appreciate you being here. And God knows it's probably 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. wherever the hell you are. So either it was a really good night for you and this is a nightcap, or you're just a really sick individual that loves football. But either way, Hugo, God bless you. And thank you for being here with us. I would still to this day, Jalen, our dash and bash concepts. I would still carry all those. It's a bitch to defend. Anytime you have perimeter runs tied to inside runs that can go in a different direction, like to me to this day, the hardest play to defend in football is counter bash. So, when a team can pull a guard and tackle one way while running a perimeter play the other way, um, hardest play, my opinion only. Again, everything I do in this channel is my opinion, but hardest play to defend, hardest play to get kids to understand how we need to get numbers and where we need to get them. Hardest play to defend based on the rules of your defense and what you're teaching your kids to do. They've got a fastball perimeter run going to his side away from a guard and tackle pulling. So what you do with your guys in the box, who you read, to me, uh, if you have the capability of doing it, the best run play in the game and the hardest to defend. Again, just my opinion. But even our power read stuff that was power read is not really to me a bash theory because the power is the same side as the sweep. Counter read or toss read stuff to me would be dart read, would be more bash theory in general. But for us, that was always a huge um oh shit, I don't even Jalen, I'm sorry. I don't what do you consider dash pass in the West Coast offense? I'm sorry. I So many videos, so many things out there that sometimes I forget what we did or what we talked about, and then terminology is so different. You talking about like semi roll, the old run and shoot kind of 3/4 rollout stuff. If that's what you're talking about, then um, I think that's more of a protection deal where we would do that. Yeah, so like pump and roll, run and shoot stuff. Not really sprint out in nature, but you're moving the pocket. That for us, Jalen, to be honest with you, was a theory that we carried because we didn't feel like we could protect the quarterback in the pocket. So we would carry a lot of our same drop back concepts front side. You couldn't full field a lot of the times, like your dash stuff, sprint out stuff, boot stuff. It's hard to be full field concept when you're moving the pocket. It ends up becoming half field stuff. But like when we were doing that, we were still carrying snag corner, curl flat, some flood theories, all of our deals from drop back that we could kind of narrow down to a half field concept. Maybe we would hit the backside post here and there, but that was more of a game plan um, booth call than it was part of the offense. But when we were doing that, the reason we were doing that was because we didn't have linemen that we felt could protect the quarterback drop back. So we wanted to carry drop back theories and throw the ball down the field intermediately or deeper than that, not just quick game stuff. And we felt like if the quarterback was in the pocket, um, that we couldn't protect them as well. So that was kind of a deal based on personnel and who we had, who our quarterback was. Our quarterback moved the pocket really well. And something that we did to give us what I thought was a competitive advantage. But the run and shoot was great when you look at Warren Moon and all the dash semi roll stuff that he was doing. Back in the late '80s, early '90s, and Mouse Davis and June Jones and all the run and shoot guys. I mean, that stuff was phenomenal. The Buffalo Bills blowing a 40-point lead was kind of the death of that offense. From the higher levels. There's a million reasons why they blew a 28 or 30-point lead in that playoff game to the Oilers. But, I think that kind of, unfortunately, excuse me, put a sidebar to the run and shoot, and people kind of got away from it. Felt like you couldn't run the ball, couldn't manipulate the clock, couldn't hold the lead. But the stuff they were doing back then was revolutionary. It was cutting edge. Moving the pocket and semi-rolling or dashing the quarterback was different than a lot of people. So at that time, in that day and age, it was really good stuff. But I would tell you from my standpoint, when we did it, it was because we couldn't protect the quarterback in the pocket. Yeah, if so my philosophy from a zone standpoint has always been, if you're inside zone, then you're wide zone, and those are really the two worlds that you live in. Um, obviously the higher levels, the college guys and the NFL guys, they're going to carry gap schemes with it. Um, for the amount of time that we have in high school, I think it's really, really tough to get good at inside zone, wide zone, and gap schemes. So anytime, and there has been some years where I have done this. Anytime we wanted to major in inside zone, wide zone, we got rid of gap schemes. All your variations, especially nowadays with the RPO game, they're all going to come off your inside zone stuff. All your tags and all your RPO throws are going to come off your inside zone stuff. And then your wide zone is going to be where you carry play action and boots. But I've always had a hard time at our level. And if you're, if overseas your practice time is similar to ours, and kids or young men or adults, football knowledge is similar to what we deal with, um, then if I went to the zone world, I would sell out to the zone world, and we would be inside zone, wide zone, and I wouldn't carry gap schemes. Um, again, fully uh, opinion based, fully, you know, my take on King. How you doing, my friend? Um, Fully opinion based, my take on things. Again, if you study college NFL teams, they're going to carry zone theories and gap theories. In our world that we live in, with the time, knowledge, coaching staffs that we have, if we were going to be heavy inside zone, wide zone, I would not run gap schemes. That would just be my opinion. I would uh, wholeheartedly sell out to zone schemes, and our tags and adjustments would be quarterback runs and RPOs off of inside zone, and then boots and play action passes off of wide zone. Um, just again, my opinion, how I would approach it. And just when I say that, though, I'm also saying that from experience. So my opinion of experience based situations where we were a zone team, and I felt like those were the things that we needed to carry. Once we go to gap schemes, so for me, philosophically, I haven't been an offensive coordinator in 3 or 4 years now, but when I was an offensive coordinator, if we're a gap scheme team, that's what we carry. I don't carry zone schemes. So, we carry our gap schemes, and our perimeter runs become pin pull deals, and um, all things that are conducive to gap schemes. I do not at our level, um, again, philosophical opinion, however you want to look at it. I, as an offensive coordinator at our level, would not carry zone schemes and gap schemes, or zone theories and gap theories. If we were zone, we're zone. If we're gap, we're gap. Um, I just think with the amount of time that we have to rep things and look at things, that you can't um, successfully carry both. Now, again, when I say that, there's a ton of teams that carry both and do a really good job. College and NFL teams are going to carry both, do a really good job. I'm just saying, for me, in my experience, and um, me doing it, carrying both theories was never good for us. Zach, to be honest with you, I do not. We base that theory off of, your, no problem, Hugo. Thanks for the question. You're an inside shade, and we're going to play all of our inside shades the same. Your visual key, pressure key is going to be the same. I don't like, very similar to the answer I just gave Hugo on offense, I do not like teaching different techniques, theories, philosophies to an inside shade. If you're a 2-eye, 4-eye, 6-eye, if you're inside shade, I want to maximize the reps that we get in practice. I want my D-line coach to be able to maximize his time. And as soon as I throw a wrinkle into that and say, hey, a 2-eye is different than a 6-eye, I think, again, nothing wrong with it. Nothing that says you can't do that. For me, in the world that I live in, with the coaching staff that I have, the time that we have, the meeting time, the individual time, the reps that we get on the field, I think it would be asking our kids a lot to, or at least, if not our kids, because maybe they don't, the 2-eye is probably rarely a 4-eye or a 6-eye. So, you could probably differentiate it that way, but your D-line coach is your D-line coach. And if he's got to teach 2-eyes different than he teaches 4-eyes or 6-eyes, you're really going to have to schedule your practices in a different manner to make sure that you can take care of all that. So, long story short, my opinion, what I would do is they would all be taught the same. I could certainly see how, based on where they're aligned and what they're going to see block rec wise, I could certainly see how you may want to teach them differently. But in our world, based on Play Fast Football Channel, high school, junior high school, Pop Warner, the more I can play one technique and get a kid really good at that, the more I'm going to want to do that. So, for me, I would not teach those any differently. And again, that's just Um, solely my opinion based on how I view things. And again, I've said this before on YouTube Live and in videos. As I get older, um, I kind of the longer I do this and the older I get, the more I eliminate and get rid of what I try to do and what we want to do. Um, because the more I realize as I get older, there's only a certain amount of time in a day. Your staff is what your staff is, so you can only, delegate certain things to your staff that you expect them to accomplish at a high level of success. So, for me, I would never want to put my D line coach in that position, um, where he's got to teach all those different things. Yeah, King, I think that's huge. That point that you bring up right there is really, really imperative to our game. Our roster is what it is. Our starters are who they are. The fact that kids got to come in behind them that usually are nowhere near as talented. We just don't have the time or the staff to be able to teach all those things to everybody on the roster. So the more we can keep things simplistic in nature, and the more kids we can get taught that have the ability to play in a game, the better off we are. So um, I think that point, King, probably is as relevant as anything else, philosophically or technically in the game of football. The fact that the backups have to be able to play probably leads you to say that you don't want a million different techniques. We're a 3-3 personnel team playing 3-4-3, but I want to put it on a solo. Yeah, Rock. So I think there's a lot of again, I think there's a lot of similarities. If you watched us play without knowing anything about us, you would think we're a 3-4 team. Our boxes are always way more conducive to 3-4. I don't think we played a single snap last year in a actual 3-3 stack box. So, you know, personnel versus schematics is a huge debate, and to me, one of the most overlooked, um, you know, facets of football where people really just don't understand the difference between personnel and structure or personnel and schematics. So, we're a 3-3 team personnel wise, but if you analyzed our film, you would come back and call me a liar and say that we're a 3-4 team because all of our boxes, um, you know, resemble that of a 3-4 structure. Um, but when I say we're a 3-3 team, I'm just trying to tell you we're playing with 3 D linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 secondary players. I'm not trying to tell you we're a 3-3 stack team. I've never, ever one time, well, no, sorry, that's a lie. Uh, Last job I was a head coach at, we were a 3-3 stack team, and I would call us a 3-3 stack defense. The last 2.5 years at my new job, I would never tell anybody we're a 3-3 stack team. We are the furthest thing from that. One of the highest rated videos on my channel is when TCU was playing in the national championship game, and I did a video talking about how TCU is not 3-3 stack, and 3-3 stack or 3-3 personnel doesn't mean 3-3 stack. And that's one of the things that I basically got into was, the nomenclature of it in football is so crazy. And if you don't research what the nomenclature means, you kind of get lost sometimes. So 3-3 personnel and 3-3 stack defense to me are two completely different animals. We're a 3-3 personnel team that looks exactly like a 3-4 box. So, just one of the differentiating, uh, you know, analytical, empirical data points out there. Like, when you start learning football and you hear 3-3, 3-4, 4-3, right away your mind goes to a certain scheme. And the more you coach and the more you study the game, you start to realize that the personnel doesn't really dictate the scheme. 3-4 teams can play the same fronts as 4-3 teams, and even 3-3 stack teams can play similar fronts. So, the personnel is more about who you have on the field, not really the schematics of what you do. Hugo, that's the $10,000 question. We struggle with it every day. We started in the spring with guys that were playing predominantly offense, predominantly defense, and we went 2 days with their base position. And then the third day, we went back to our original install and we taught two-way players on that day. So we would go, defensive install, defensive install. Day three was back to day one install for the guys that are playing on the other side of the ball. And, you know, effective at times, but not effective at times. We've also done it to where every practice we have is split, and you're going to get offensive and defensive practice, install everything else in the same day. So I've done it both ways. I don't really know which one is better. It probably depends on your staff and your kids. But anytime you have guys playing both ways, it's finding a practice plan that works for you. And finding a structure that can get guys taught the things that you need them to get taught, um, conducive to your practice plan is always going to be the biggest struggle, right? So when you go to a clinic and you go listen to all these college and NFL guys talk about their practice structure, well, they're not making a practice structure that has two-way players, and they're not making a practice structure where their punter and their kicker are their quarterback and their fullback. So as great as that information is, as much as we want to take that practice plan and plug and play into a Google sheet and say, hey guys, I got this practice plan from Florida State University, and this is how we're going to practice. I don't think our rosters and our coaching staff matches that. So, you've got to be able to take things by trial and error and figure out what works for you and what you're trying to get done and what you need to get done. So, done it both ways. Don't really know. I would lean towards split practices with offensive emphasis, defense at the end of the day. The next day's defensive emphasis, offensive emphasis at the end of the day. I would lean towards that more than what we tried to do in the spring. We ran into some issues, with the way we were trying to do it. Heavy defense, heavy offense. The third day, review the install and teach the guys that are playing both ways. Again, hit or miss here or there, whatever works for you. I would lean towards heavy offense, defense at the end, heavy defense, offense at the end, and I would practice that way all the time. So, again, just my opinion on experience and what we've had to do and how we've had to do it. So, been on for over an hour now, guys. Any of you guys that were on last night waiting for me and I never showed up, God bless you. Thank you for being here tonight. Scheduled two things at the same time, and you're welcome, Hugo. And completely dropped the ball last night. So any of you guys that were waiting last night that are on tonight, thank you so much. Anybody else that is on tonight, thank you for everything you do for Play Fast. Thank you for everything you do for football. Neat story for you guys out there. I work part-time at a golf course that I live at. And I have to get up at 4:45 tomorrow to do that job, which is kind of the reason I'm going to be ending this chat. But I got a message on Twitter from a kid that I coached. Thank you, Maui. Kid that I coached 2 jobs ago at a place that I was only at for 2 years, but this kid was a senior when I took over. And he sent me a message asking me if I was working at the golf course and what the greens were going to look like. And I told him that I was going to be there this morning and the greens should be pretty good. And I got done working and one of his guys bailed and I ended up playing 18 holes with, 3 guys, 1 football player, 2 baseball players from a school that I was only at for 2 years. And I got fired after the first 2 years. But, long story short, in the business we're in the world that we live in, you got to take care of your people. You got to take care of your coaches. You got to take care of your players because you never know who you're going to need or where you're going to see those guys. So, tying everything that we've talked about, 1 platoon, 2 platoon, how you practice, how you do those things, being able to do it all every day and seeing kids every day to me is the better way to do it because 8 years later, a kid sends me a message about a golf course and then we end up playing 18 holes together. So, there's more to your practice plans than just offense, defense, and special teams. There's team building, there's team bonding, there's establishing relationships with players. So I lean towards 75% offense, defense at the end, 75% defense, offense at the end, because especially as a head coach, then I get a chance to see every kid. The way we did it in the spring, I think was really good to get more done on offense and defense, but um, all our players were basically returners from, the previous season, a couple new kids here or there, but of the new kids, I either knew them um, from campus or from my class. So, but when you're looking at a relationship standpoint, if you do it 2 days offense and then the third day defense, that's less time. The kid that's primarily a receiver, I really don't ever see them until that third defensive day. And unless I have a previous relationship with them, it's kind of hard to build a connection with them. So if I see them every day, that's a little bit easier, for the relationship part and how you're building, you know, what you're trying to build within your program. So thanks, Raj. Again, thank you guys for being here. Thanks for being here on a Saturday night. Thanks for being here if you waited last night. Sorry that I kept you waiting last night, but Rock, let's talk soon. Got some ideas about getting the clinic rolling again, and you were a big part of the first one, so I want to roll some things by you. So again, thank you for what you guys do. There is no YouTube live without you guys. There is no Play Fast without you guys. Apologize that I have to cut this short, but I have to get up at 4:45 and work the golf course tomorrow. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all the great comments. Thank you for asking questions because it makes this go, way better when you guys are asking questions. And I say this to you guys, whether you believe it or not is up to you. But with all these videos that we do and me giving my opinion on things, the more you guys ask questions and the more you guys comment and respond, I'm trying to learn like everybody else is. So if you guys have a way you do something, doesn't matter if it's different than me. There's no telling when I'm going to take one of your ideas from a comment in this comment box, comment section, and use it for myself, right? That's the world we live in. That's coaching in general. So when you guys comment, ask questions, it just makes for a better experience. So, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for following Play Fast. Thank you for coaching football and doing all the things that you do. Hugo, thank you for watching from Europe where it's probably 3 a.m. wherever you are. God bless you. As always, remember, guys, you won't play well until you play fast. We'll do this again really soon. Appreciate you all. See you next time.